Here we go again.
Hello again, PCQIs. In today's project, I'm going to be making an assessment on repairs and maintenance program. So as a PCQI, you really want to pay close attention to your repairs and maintenance program, okay? So on the maintenance program, which we're going to break down in this series of videos, we're going to be talking about the equipment maintenance register, your preventive maintenance plan, equipment maintenance checklist, preventive maintenance checklist. In this particular, this program has a chiller, so we're going to be covering chiller filter monitoring form, monthly preventive maintenance checklist, and maintenance request form, and finally training materials on filling out the form. So that's going to be included in today or in this video discussion. All right. Okay, PCQIs. I am gonna pull up our actual program and do the finer points that I look for. So as a PCQI, we're gonna actually review the repairs and the maintenance program itself, which in the previous segment we covered what it will entail. Now we're gonna go a little bit in making that assessment. So on this part right here, there's a purpose section on your program, which in this event is to implement the methods. So for the facility, so repairs and maintenance of the facility or the plant, the equipment, and the building. So on this part, there's a separation, between the plant and the building, because on the building, that might be your administration side and the actual plant, okay? You're also going to need to cover routine maintenance for your plant and equipment, the maintenance control schedule, and record it, okay? Repairs, record all your repairs, and then reporting the repairs to the site supervisor. Repairs and maintenance that possesses a food safety risk are to be reported to the site supervisor as well as the practitioner on site. The reason why is you want to keep account for that, not just by maintenance but also in the food safety inspection that must be or can be adjusted. Conduct maintenance outside operation hours if all possible. So this is just a recommendation. Sometimes it's very, very difficult to repairs and maintain your equipment and facility during production. It's very risky for food contamination, so it's recommended that you perform those outside operating hours. Next part is temporary repairs must not pose a food safety risk and shall be included on a routine inspection. This part right here, if there are repairs, I include them on my pre-ops. So I have a little section on my pre-ops form that I would add repair section, so I can go in there, make sure there's still, the integrity of the quarantining or sectionalizing it, or however you are roping that off or segregating it. Make sure those are still in place, to prevent if there's holes in the walls, from pest and all of those other things. But we can talk more in details on that in future videos. But add them on your pre-ops. If it's a daily, if you have a project that's going to be perform, like the general contractor's not coming up for another week, 2 weeks, or maybe on the next round of senior management's investment to the facility, you want to annotate that preferably for that, and then add it on your weekly or monthly inspection. It also depends on how close it is to your production area. So there's a lot of different scenarios here. Temporary repairs. The temporary repairs, you have to, as a PCQI, make an assessment to add them in the cleaning program. What I mean by temporary repairs is sometimes people use zip ties or tape. You're gonna want to get those removed and clean and find a better way of securing those. And sometimes you have no choice, right, because of the location of it. But as a PCQI, you're looking at food safety at this point. So you're going to need to make an assessment for those temporary repairs. Next topic, food grade lubricants to be used on food contact equipment and equipment located over food contact surfaces. Paint use in food handling or processing areas shall be of suitable use. So basically it has to be like in good conditions. Look at them there's no chips or cracks on the paint, and also make sure there are no paints on food contact surfaces. Now for typical paint for food processing, there are certain approved paint that are out there, but make sure you also check with the state. Sometimes some of these paint are not allowed to cross borders, okay? So make sure you have those, research those. Okay, PCQIs, next topic, policies that need to be implemented on our repairs and maintenance program. So part of those policies would be maintenance procedures are carefully planned, designed, documented, and implemented to avoid contamination of the products, materials, or equipment, and ensure that maintenance staff, including contractors, understand the safety implication of the maintenance activities. So that's really, really important, right, for that communication. Maintenance of equipment of building structure are completed in a manner that does not pose a risk to the product or materials, including packaging materials, of course, and equipment. The maintenance supervisor at the site supervisor are informed if any repairs or maintenance activity pose a potential threat to product safety. So some of these things we look for as a PCQI for this reporting part is make sure all those little tidbits are being removed. You have, especially if they're doing electrical work, there's electrical wires, they snip these little wires and things goes flying all over the place. So make sure those are fully accounted for. Nuts and bolts that are, that rolls under machines or in the machine. Screwdrivers, rags, all of these things that gets left off by maintenance. So make sure, or the repair person, and anything that end up being damaged due to that repair as well, right? Especially on light fittings, when they're going up there and they're repairing lights. Now some lights are being repaired inside the room instead of on the ceiling. So you might want to take a look at that and ask that question, because that could be another risk if everything's being performed inside that production area. So another touch point on this is when you have certain things that are hanging from the ceiling, you're gonna want to take a look at those as a as a PCQI. You want to work with maintenance on having them look at the integrity of those wires or pipes or exhaust vent fans and things like that. So you want to have your maintenance person also make that part of their visual inspection, as well as yours or your pre-ops operation. And of course on this one I've mentioned if maintenance could be conducted after hours, that would be great. Now maintenance is to maintain, okay? So I know things happen during production or during your process time that you need maintenance to come out there. And that's another video that I'm gonna make of how I make an assessment of those action items there. Now, part of the policy, you're gonna need to have a notification to the supervisor of any breakage or damage that could expose the product, the packaging, or equipment to contamination. So you're gonna have that. You're gonna inform your maintenance supervisor, your QC, as well as your production. So all of that has to be communicated so we can contain those potential risks. And then after everything is done, if it's a repair or maintenance is completed, you're gonna need to do an inspection as a PCQI. Not just your supervisors like production or in this case maintenance will be first, and then who's ever accepting the work from the contractor. But as a PCQI, make sure you have that as well on your task to be able to do that, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to accept those repairs as part of your program as a PCQI and your responsibilities, right? So after that one, okay, the next part of the policy, you're gonna need to have a cleanup measures, for that area that was serviced by the contractor, and also their, record all of their activity in getting all of their equipment out, tools, all the consumable items that they are using that belongs to them or belongs to the facility. And if some of these tools that crossed over from your designated use, if you have that plan, which I highly recommend that you have separate tools for separate function within the a different zone from your production and your normal maintenance, make sure those are fully accounted for. I've been in assessment where I see screwdrivers left on machines or equipment. Rags, they stuff them. I've even seen wrapped around flashlight where it has that snake on it, and they wrap it on an equipment because they're underneath, they're working, and they needed more illumination to perform their job, and those gets forgotten, and then the machine comes on and that becomes part of the machine that you then have to find out later on due to a mishap or contamination of some sort on pathogens and stuff. Okay, so make sure those are all cleaned up. Next part of the policy is the supplier, staff, maintenance personnel, and service contractors must adhere to the correct procedure when completing the maintenance on all equipment. On this part of it include, obviously you have your PPE part of that, but it's really the paperwork at the end. So you want to be able to record all of those, make that part of it. Part of the policy also include your pre-ops QC or QA for inspection of before use on the repaired equipment, for inspection for missing parts, nuts, bolts, and springs, etc. This is really important for your QC person to take a look at every machine that was repaired the night before, or even sometimes during production, an equipment goes down and maintenance goes out there. QC needs to verify visually of what they did, and look for these items that are left off by maintenance, or they might have misplaced. Okay. Part of the policy is for those responsible for reporting and completing repairs and cleaning the equipment after repairs are specified in the maintenance procedures. Another part of the policy is the use of temporary fasteners such as string, wire, or tape is not permitted. So in this particular program, it was actually put on there, those are not permitted in the processing room. Part of the policy is to use food grade lubricant in the machinery that exists over product lines or food contact surfaces. Tidbit on the food grade lubricant: as they perform that activity, make sure there are no excess lubricant. Sometimes they, as part of maintenance, is when you push out that grease. So part of the policy is use the food grade lubricant sparingly. I know as a maintainer, we tend to put more grease on the machine to ooze out, right, to kind of get that old stuff out, and you see that white, creamy, beigey color grease coming out, and make sure you wipe that off and there's not too excess. because that could fall into the product. Other part of the policy, we're covering paint on equipment, roof, walls, or floors. Make sure those are in good condition. So those could be checked for your processing area. Make sure you check those as part of your pre-ops or your daily checks. But for outside of that, zone 3, 4, or outside the building, they could be incorporated on your weekly or monthly facility check as part of your visual inspection. And last part of this policy is paint is not allowed to be used on food contact surfaces. Okay. Continuing on our repairs and maintenance program. In this topic, we're going to be talking about the maintenance activities and using our equipment and maintenance register. So part of the program, you're going to need to start creating forms. Okay. So forms are used for records. So one of those forms is an equipment maintenance register or list. Whatever your comfort level of using the word register. Some folks, they like to use the word list, register, or log. Now, on this form that you're going to need for your equipment maintenance register, so the title says equipment, so guess what goes in here? Equipment, okay? So on your equipment, you're going to have a column that has your equipment listed. Now you can also add other column to what I'm suggesting, but these are some of the things that I look for when I'm doing my internal audit or deep dive audit. Another part of that is after equipment, you can put a description of that equipment should you need to after equipment name. Then you're gonna have a column for a serial number or a model number, so for your tagging. Now some facility, they actually have equipment ID number. So if it's a pre-weigh room and they want that equipment under the pre-weigh room, so they would put a PW and then the number. So then they know they can fully accounted for. If it's for the cook room, they put a CR. If it's for baking, cooking, whatever that process is, you can go as detailed as you want, for that. So equipment ID number is part of your register. The next part of it is location. So that's where you can cover that if you put initials on the numbers of the equipment numbers. If not, you don't want to do that, then you can just put a list on those locations. So as a preventive maintainer, if I was tasked by my supervisor to make sure all of the equipment in the cook room are being maintained, I can go to this list and segregate that location and have that list compiled for me to do my work in. Okay. Now part of that register as well, it's parts to maintain. So once you have that equipment, for example, it could be just for just the sake of examples, you have a blender that you put on your equipment, but you have different maintenance part of it. For that, it could be just a motor at one point, and it could be all the food contact surfaces, or just your zone 2. You're going to want to put those, what part of what you're going to maintain on that register. So the next column, it's going to be called the process owner. Now the process owner, are you basically doing this in-house with your in-house maintenance team? Or is there an outside service provider that's going to be performing that repair or that maintenance? Or an actual company that does it? Some of the facility I work with have a special mechanic that's local, that's doing all of this work for them. Make sure they are, listed on that, so you know who to contact. And the last part of this register is the frequency of the maintenance. Is this a daily function, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually? Okay, so that's kind of a quick tidbit on the equipment maintenance register. Now your preventive maintenance plan, it's gonna cover for the year. Okay, so some plant they do this on a daily basis, where they know where things are gonna what they're maintaining and their projection for the next year. For example, let's say you need to calibrate certain equipment, and those calibrations are due depending on the equipment. They could be due in different type of months or quarters. So this is where you're going to have those listed. So during an audit, if an auditor do ask for that, you'll be able to show your plan. This also includes filters, anything that's it's a preventive maintenance. Okay. So this form, you're going to need a column for obviously the equipment with areas, so at least you know as well. This could correlate to your register if you're automating your system. So equipment information, the same thing with what you're going to be maintaining. Out of that, the serial number or model number or ID number column. And then you're going to have the map as January, February, up to December as you are putting those system together. For example, calibration should be here because you are calibrating anything that's a measuring equipment. And that's part of that as part of your maintenance that it would work. And filters, heat exchangers, HVAC systems, any equipment that needed to be under that maintenance. Now, what's nice when I'm looking at these, it's also some maintenance team, they actually take an equipment and put it on the schedule to completely break it down. Whether it's broke or not, that's their mentality of break it before it breaks you, right? So, or break it down before it breaks down during production. So they have a really good maintenance program for that. So they would actually take and disassemble and service all of those and put it back together in one shift. So then they can sign off on all of the parts that they replace. So it's a very, very simple form. Okay, you have the months laid out and as well as what equipment or areas of the parts of an equipment that you are maintaining as part of your plan. Okay. Equipment maintenance checklist. So you probably already have a checklist on hand. I'm sure you do. This is just an assessment that I'm doing and I'm sharing with you. So on the equipment checklist, typically what I see is there's a job number or a date performed, equipment ID or the serial number of that equipment and the location of it. It could be done by an engineer / a maintenance technician. Obviously, and also an equipment name as part of that form or checklist. Now, on this form, we've added a maintenance schedule section where the person performing it can either fill it out or put if it's daily, do a tick mark on it. If it's a monthly or bi-monthly, annually, or quarterly. So there's a section on there. So during an audit, when an auditor asks how often do you perform this particular activity, you can actually show record like, oh, we do this on an annual basis or we do this on a quarterly basis. Okay. So on this checklist, there's a section for the parts to be checked or maintained. So those are listed and also what to check for. So this is where you're going to be more in depth of what you're looking for. Let's say if it's a filter that is being changed every month, so it's going to be a monthly remove and replace. If it's grommets or certain bolts or nuts or certain moving parts, you're going to basically list them all here. And there's basically another section that if it's okay or if it's defective and what is the maintenance action plan. In other forms, we call this corrective action, but this is the maintenance action and then who repaired it and whatnot. Okay. So basically that's really just a checklist, and then at the end it's performed by, and you have a verified by section. Now, part of the program, we also invited the supervisor, so that's where the verification comes in, or the practitioner, as well as the PCQI. So depends on your form. If this is a checklist, well, this is a checklist to be used for records, you're gonna want to have those recorded for, you know, who performed it and who verified that it was performed, especially on the food safety side of things for post cleanup and whatnot. Okay, so that's your checklist segment on repairs and maintenance program. In this topic, we'll be covering preventive maintenance checklist. So when you prepare this one, so I'm doing an assessment now. So the way this thing is broken down, there's a machine name or equipment name, and there's a month and year. So this is basically specific to an equipment. So let's talk about the blender, for example, in this example that I'm looking at. So you're gonna put the dates on the left side. Obviously, it's a equipment name is a blender. And then I'm going to have a section of what am I doing for daily, monthly, quarterly, or yearly. And then the next inspection date. So let's say if I perform a filter, oh, this is a blender, a blade change. So I'm going to put it on the date, and then I'm going to recheck it again in 6 months or in 3 months or next week or whatever. And then the type of activity, part of this equipment could be, looking at certain parts for wear and tear, whatever that is, or you cleaned it, cleaning like deep clean or whatever, and any other repairs, it's going to go into that type of activity. Certain part of a system, for example, when you have a zone 2, which is underneath the machine as part of your zone 2, sometimes those gets opened up once a week, once a month. So, and there's some repairs and cleaning. You're gonna wanna put that here as well, and a full description of that process. There's a remark section that's added on this form, and then the performed by person that's doing that work, and then the verified by person. So you're gonna have to customize this paperwork as you build your maintenance program. Okay, so let me see what else we got. Now on the bottom part of this, there's a comment section. So this is where the technician can make a comments of what could go wrong or need parts for, or anything that he wants to schedule in the future. For example, he noticed certain parts are really wearing out, that he put parts on order or parts on hand waiting for downtime or the end of the month or whatever that deep maintenance schedule for that area or for that equipment, so he can make comments on there. And basically, let me see here. So there's a caution here that was added by the practitioner that if it is found unsafe or contribute to an unsafe condition, they should all be reported to the supervisor, which is great, which is part of our program, reported up to the chain of command, right? So it could be put on hold, or be repaired immediately, or on a schedule, or replaced, all right? Because production has to move on. It says do not make repairs or adjustment unless specifically authorized to do so. So sometimes a technician will go in and they start breaking things down, and then there's no parts for it, or there's going to be some issues that we don't have, and there's production that's coming, instead of performing a temporary repair. So, or they really needed to repair it right there, and come to find out there's a lot of missing stuff. So make sure those gets communicated, especially with production. And that always creates a little bit of a stress, a lot actually, on the production side, because they needed that piece of equipment, and then that relates into sales and customer, etc. So it's a domino effect. So make sure everything is communicated at this part. In this topic, we're going to be covering filter monitoring. So on our filter monitoring, obviously we're going to be working on forms on this one. So I'll go over some of that assessment when it comes to your forms. Now, before I jump into that, on filters, I made some example here. You might have several filters in your facility that you use. Obviously, one of the common filters that we all know of from our vehicles is what? Oil filter, fuel filter, cabin filter, air filter, right? So it's the same concept when you're having your car maintained, same thing with your facility. So I'll go over that. Some filters we found is from chillers. They have filters, so you're gonna want to have those as part of your schedule, okay? Air filters. Now some are HEPA filters that are directly installed on the exhaust, supply lines going into a production to produce positive air. HVAC systems filter. Water filters. So if you have part of your process is using water as part of your ingredients or process, you're going to have water filters. And some areas also use desiccants for air filters for that. So you're going to want to, anything that filters, right? So we just don't leave them there for a year. There's a lot of, when I'm doing a walkthrough, I see a filter housing and then I ask when is the last time that filter changed. We've had filters that were forgotten as I'm doing my deep dive audit, and this particular water filter, it's coming from the well, and they have their all sorts of processes, but there's a main filter that the sediments are not replaced. It was actually a 3 filter systems for different sediments and mud and things like that. And I simply asked the question, when was the last filter? And it's been a while, right? So that when they changed it there, and I wish I had photos, so it would be great for training, for that. Anyways, long story short, please have all your filters on your monitoring form. So let's go over that. On the monitoring form, so we're going to have a column for the serial number or code. That's important for the filter. So when you're reordering, you know what you're looking at and you're going to get the right one. Brand name is the other part. There are multiple brands out there, and it could be a suitable substitute. So you're going to want to put that information for that. Filter location. So like for an air filter, let's say you have compressed air. Obviously, you're going to have, I've seen filters that has multiple stages because of the length of that compressed air has to travel. So there's one on the compressed air equipment itself, and there are for so many feet. There's some desiccant or other filters in place, all the way to the point of contact where that compressed air is used to either open actuators, blow up, puff some air into packaging bags, for the product to enter. So obviously you have all of those stages, so make sure those are on schedule. And believe it or not, during audit, I've seen maintenance been asked to provide those records and they couldn't do it, and it becomes a non-conformance write-up, okay? So it's easy to prevent. Part of that is there's a area there so where you can put the condition of that filter and the type of activity that you perform. Normally we put inspected, it was clean, it was replaced, things like that. Now some filters are cleanable, okay? So look at the owner's manual or the filter specs for that. And there's a cleaning and sanitation protocol that you need to perform when it comes to the food safety thing. And then there's a section there that says performed by, the date and time it was performed, okay? Verified by, and then the verified date, and then it was approved by and approved by date. Now you're probably saying, well, you have 3 things here that are happening. Why do you need three people? Now the performed by, sometimes it's just a technician. They're going out to remove and replace or clean and things like that. The verified by type of this one could be coming from the supervisor, the QC, the QA, or in this event, the PCQI. And the approval part of it is normally on the management side of things, okay? Now, on this one, if you want to remove the approved by for those repairs, you can, but I recommend you put reviewed by. So reviewed by would be on the PCQI level or senior management, that these are being reviewed as part of your management commitment / responsibility. We've done our filter monitoring form. Now, if you have multiple filters, you can put them all in one form and segregate them that way, or you can create one form for each. So during an audit, if you are asked about the air filter, then you would just then disclose those air filter records. If you are asked for the chiller, let's say they walk into a room and you can already smell, right? You've seen it, you've smelled it, right? If you have that operation in a chiller, you're gonna have this odor that's coming up. So that is a thing in your head saying, okay, I need to take care of some of these things here, and it could be a filter, or you need to clean your coils, etc., etc. So take a look at that as well. As part of our repairs and maintenance program, we're going to be covering a monthly preventive maintenance checklist. So this is another form that you can use. So let me make my assessment notes on it. So on the monthly preventive maintenance checklist, obviously just the title says it's a monthly checklist for some of your parts. Okay, so part of this is on the forms, it has a machine or equipment name, the month that these are being performed. So this correlates with your plan as well that we discussed previously. The equipment ID, the serial number, and the location, what parts to check, and what type of activity you're going to do that month. Are you going to clean? Are you just going to be inspecting it, maintaining it? You can even add like replace the filter and whatnot. So the type of activity, is it okay? Is it defective? What is the status as part of your monthly check? And then if there's any maintenance action on there, like for example, like apply grease, replacement of parts, things like that, you can annotate this checklist. Now, there's a lot of checklists you can use. So some of these assessment example I'm giving out, you can consolidate these things. Okay, so if you need help, if you're still not automating your maintenance, and you're doing this in Excel, and you need help, and you can do all of those things. If you need help putting all your maintenance program, policy, procedures, kindly let us know so we can assist you. Now, on this part is we also have a module that automated this entire process where you don't have to do redundant paperwork. If you're still in paper-based, that you could actually also digitize all of these forms and consolidate them in one module where you can have all your reports and everything else, okay? So just kind of let us know. So this is a simple form, right? So that has basically per equipment that you are doing your preventive maintenance checklist on a monthly basis. Now some of our facility that we manage or help manage actually have this all as part of their weekly or daily task, and the system just kind of resets for them as part of their monthly that comes in. Now, part of this forms on a paper base, it has the performed by section, the verified by, the reviewed by / approved by section. All right, we're going to be covering the maintenance request form. Okay, so on the maintenance request form, this is the form used when you are requesting maintenance. Quite simple form, right? So there's a section for work order number, the date, and requested by. So going back to the blender, if that's needs to be repaired, obviously this will be filled out by somebody there with the team lead, supervisor, or manager person that's requesting it. So the requester will fill this out, and they're going to put some details of the issues of what is happening. Now, some of these parts, sometimes they add photos. With everybody having videos now, they even add a video to it if it's an operational issue, so you can kind of hear it, the sound, and things like that. And they would put it on this form, and then it would then be given to the maintenance department. The maintenance department then will assign it. There's a area on this form where you where they assign this particular activity to their technician or team. After that, they would then put, their maintenance action items on it, the date it was repaired, and time, and as well as who reviewed it and approved it. Okay. Part of that forms on this work order forms, it also has a little section that you can add where the operational check and it was accepted by, let's say, production. So whichever department that maintenance person or the maintenance request came from, that person looked at it and says, okay, it is acceptable, or it's not, it's still not operating. So you can use this form to document all of those processes should you wish. Okay. So that's a quick tidbits on the maintenance request form. So in this topic, we're going to be covering training records, this is the last part of our series on our repairs and maintenance program. So once you put your program together, everything is completed. As a PCQI, you need to draft training materials for your team to be signed off on. So a lot of these training materials, or we call lessons, on our PFL, which is Program Policy Procedure, Forms for Records, and Lessons for Training Materials. So, on this part of the training part of it, it's really your internal program that you're gonna dissect, right? Like if train personnel on how to report maintenance issues. What does that look like? Who does it go to? What system are you using if you're automated? Do they know how to use the system? Or do they just call maintenance on the radio? So you want to be specific on this training methodology, inspecting for cleanliness afterwards. So there's a lot of topics that you can cover based on your training program. So I'll go back to your program on the overall, on your policies, and create training materials out of those to communicate with your team and to the rest of the company levels. All right. So part of the on the training records as well, make sure the qualification of personnel, and this is something that you might want to talk to HR for your maintenance supervisor, like all of their certification, chemical handling, or special training that they receive outside the organization. Make sure those are captured, just in case on a deep dive audit you get asked, or sometimes if something happened, if it's OSHA related, that person was qualified or not qualified to perform certain tasks. As a PCQI, as part of our job as preventive controllers, these are some things that we need to talk to the maintenance supervisor and also maintenance manager of processing certain things. In maintenance, we handle a lot of different aspects, right? Pneumatic tools, all sorts of other tools for calibration and whatnot, chemicals that we work with. So make sure all of these preventive controls are in place for for training purposes as well. Make sure you communicate those. And make a list of those on what they need. So as a PCQI, for you, it's really the overall program, and make sure they're signed off on it. Okay, so during an audit, you're very comfortable and you're not super stressed. Okay, so hopefully that helped out. If you need help, kindly contact us. We're here to assist. And if you'd like to contribute to our blog and on our best practices, please email me info@consultaryinc.com. Love to hear from you. And if you want to participate in some of these best practices videos that we are creating and putting out there, please reach out to me. Love to hear from you, right? And once again, PCQI, have a great day and stay strong. Have a good week.